We're talking about change today, and the title of the talk is Parking in the Comfort Zone. Now, you know what your comfort zone is because that's where you feel comfortable. That's kind of where we tend to live our lives, and there's really nothing wrong with that. Because outside of our comfort zone would be the uncomfort zone, or the discomfort zone, or the uncomfortable zone, or some people think of it as the danger zone or the death zone. I'm not going there because that's not comfortable. I want to stay in here where it's cozy and everything is understandable. And what I want to talk about a little bit is the process that we have of moving outside of our comfort zone and why that's important. Because outside of the comfort zone, yeah, it's discomfort or danger or whatever we describe it as, but that's also our growth zone. Inside of our comfort zone, we're not going to be changing. We're not going to be growing. We're not going to be expanding. And we don't have to grow and expand in every direction all the time. However, we do need to pay attention to the way that we are growing and expanding, the way that we're opening ourselves up to new possibilities, because otherwise there's the possibility of stagnating. So our friend Robert D. McDonald has the 4 questions, and I understand that the Women's Circle has been using this on a monthly and now bi-monthly basis. And the 4 questions are, question number 1 is, are you happy with the experience of life that you're having now? Very simple question. And if the answer is yes, then you can skip the other 3 questions. If you're happy with the experience that you've been having, then you can skip the 3 questions. And then the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th are about what experience do you want to be having instead. And once you have that, how will you know that you have it? And the 4th question is, what's keeping you from having it now? And those last 3 are all about dealing with the change, about getting outside of our comfort zone and saying, okay, I've had what I've had up until now, and next I want to have something different. And that's the process for getting into something different. And that's where we're out of our comfort zone. That's where we're in our growth zone. And what happens is when we step out a little bit and we do something that's bold or different or daring or adventurous, and it works for us, then we've expanded our comfort zone. Our base has gotten bigger and there's room for more in our lives. But what happens if the answer to that first question is yes? Are you happy with the experience of life that you're having now? And the first time I posed this to a good friend of mine, he said, well, yeah. Do I just get to skip it? And on the one hand, you do get to skip the other 3 steps, but what do you do instead? What do we do when we're happy with the way things are going in our comfort zone right now? And, you know, the current state is satisfactory. Gratitude. Practice gratitude. When we take the good that we have for granted, we're turning our back on the possibility for that good to continue and even to up-level for us. A practice of gratitude is huge. Huge, huge. And Meister Eckhart is the mystic in the 1600s or 1400s. He said, if the only prayer you ever say is thank you, it will be enough. If the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that will be enough. So if your answer to question number 1 is yes, I'm happy with the way my life is going now, get into a gratitude practice. Get a gratitude journal. A lot of times a gratitude journal is used to remind us of how good our life is when we forget or we don't notice or we think that there are challenging things. We can embark on a gratitude journal where we write down 3 or 5 or 10 things in the morning or in the evening about that we're grateful for the day. And it reminds us to be in that place of gratitude. You don't have to do that when you're being challenged by circumstances. You can do that when you're living in your comfort zone. Things are going along now. And even if we're thinking back to the times where there's disruption and change and transformation going on for us, we can say, I'm glad to be through that, and I am so grateful for this new experience that I'm having now. And just bask in that. We're not hiding from anything. We're not shirking from anything, but we're keeping ourselves in the flow of that good. There's a lot of talk about how technology is disruptive, and there are processes in life that are disruptive, and it's in the disruption that we get rid of the old ways of doing things and we bring in new ways of doing things. And I actually have spent a lot of my professional career being on the leading edge of the disruption. basically working in industries that no longer exist to turn them into new industries that now do exist. And they've gone through a few cycles in them. I was in the printing and publishing business, and I actually was working at advertising agencies when the art directors would use spray adhesive and wax to put the pages of typeset materials together. And then the people who were setting the type got taken over by desktop publishing, and then the people who were doing the color got taken over by the color publishing, and then the printing presses got taken over by glorified color copiers. And all those people who used to have a great job, like working as a typesetter, they're out of work. That's not a happy thing for them in the world of disruption. However, that's the way that growth happens. There is disruption. And we were running a consulting company working out of Tampa, and our lead instructor carried around a little brochure from the Florida Bartenders School. And when she went in to train somebody who had been doing things the old way, and it was saying, well, you're going to need to, great, you've been a typesetter for 15 years, and you'd love to keep doing that, but that's going away. So let's teach you how to use these new technologies, the new computer things. And when somebody was resistant, she'd whip out the brochure and she'd say, you're going to need a different choice. So maybe you want to learn to be a bartender, because typesetter is not going to be around long enough for you to retire from that. And it really annoyed people. And it was absolutely true. It was absolutely true. It's a great book. Actually, it's a wonderful book. It's called New Thoughts for Today, and it's Contemplations for a Rapidly Changing World. Now, this book was published by Anton, the affiliated New Thought Network, and the contributors in it, there are probably 30 authors who wrote the one-page messages. And it's got a quote and an inspiration and an affirmation and a story in there. I'm one of them. And it's a wonderful source for just... I gave one to Jane yesterday at the park, and she says, this is the kind of book I'm just going to open to a page and let that be what my day is about. And it's wonderful for doing that. And as I was going through here, my friend Carla Ryan, who actually was the publisher of the book, had a story where she wrote, she actually quoted something that she heard on the radio, which is, it is what it is until it isn't anymore. It is what it is until it isn't anymore. And that really cites the impermanence of the things that are going on. When we're in our comfort zone, it is what it is, and that's great. And let's rock that and celebrate it and be grateful for it. And when the next disruption comes along, when the next change comes along, let's find a way to embrace that and bring our best selves to it. There's a story that I've probably told way too often, so I'll do it very quickly now. It's the good news, bad news, who can tell story, about the farmer who goes and visits his neighbor. And this is an ancient Chinese story, and asks the neighbor how things are going. And the neighbor says, well, the corral broke and his stallion got away. And that's a loss. And his neighbor says, oh, that's bad news. He says, bad news, good news, who can tell? A couple of days later, same neighbor comes by, check on it, and it turns out that what's happened is that the stallion came back and brought 3 wild mares with him. It's like, oh, good news. He says, good news, bad news, who can tell? And a couple of days later, the neighbor's back checking in again, and it turns out that the farmer's son, while he was repairing the corral, fell off the ladder and broke his leg. Oh, bad news. Bad news, good news, who can tell? A couple of days later, the army comes through collecting up conscripts to take off to fight in the war, and the son can't go because he's got a broken leg, so he's spared and stays home. And the guy says, good news. It's like, you can't tell. You just can't tell. It could be good news. It could be bad news. And we don't necessarily know what the difference is or how to look at it. And when we let go of our judgment about being able to label something as good news or bad news and say this is the best thing that could ever happen, or this is the worst thing that could ever happen, when we go outside of our comfort zone of evaluating things the way that they have been, it gives us a lot of freedom. It gives us a lot of ability to experience things in a new way. It's political season now. Election day is coming up. It's 3 weeks away, and if you watch any of the political advertising on television, oh my God, the screaming and the hysteria. Nobody's in their comfort zone. The left won't leave anything left, and the right is taking away our rights. And what's going to happen? And we can get involved in the fight and that's okay, whatever we're going to do for our civic duty. And we can know the truth. We can invite love to unfold, to have that disruption, to have that change happen in a way that brings more good for everybody. For everybody. Did I mention that change is not necessarily always comfortable? That when we're faced with a change and we're getting dragged out of our comfort zone, sometimes kicking and screaming, that it's uncomfortable. Yeah, it is. There was another piece in the New Thoughts for Today book. This one was written by Martha Creek, who shared something called 5 Invitations, and it's about change. And as we are growing into our next newness, and they're invitations because they're not commandments, they're opportunities, they're possibilities for us to consider. The first invitation is don't wait. If something can change, don't wait. Allow it, open to it, and invite it. The second one is include everything and resist nothing. If the answer could be yes, then there could be something good in there. So, and I love to say the answer is always yes, let's figure out what the question is. And as we are jumping into that, what is the question that we're going to get a yes to? Include everything and resist nothing, because that lets us be open. That brings in a brand new possibility. The third invitation is to bring your whole self to the experience. I know that there have been times in my life where I said, okay, yeah, and I half-assed the engagement with it. It's like, yeah, I'm kind of involved, but I'm kind of not involved. And it kind of works and it kind of doesn't work. And it can be okay. And when I bring my full self to something, my full intention, not necessarily doing things, but I'm going to be present and 100% involved in making sure that this is going to be unfolding as highest and best. It changes it. It changes all of it. The fourth one kind of caught me by surprise. Find rest in the middle of everything. Find rest in the middle of everything. Yeah, I'm really good at doing stuff. And it's possible for me to get so busy doing stuff that it turns into a struggle. Does it sound familiar to anybody? And we can struggle. We are free to choose to struggle. But good news, bad news, who can tell? We don't need to struggle. Maybe there's a different possibility for us. So when we let go of that, and we find rest in the middle of everything, then it leaves the unfolding in a new way. If you take a deep breath in, and then deep breath out, you can keep on breathing really fast until it turns into work, until it makes you lightheaded. Or you can take a deep breath in and pause. Take a deep breath out and pause. And even doing something that you're going to be doing all the time, you can find rest in the middle of it. So, rest doesn't mean we're going to take a nap, but it does mean that we're going to bring peace and peace of mind into whatever we're engaged in. And the fifth and final one is cultivate the I don't know mind. Some of the most challenging times I've had in my life are when I knew the answer. And I had to fight with people who didn't know the answer, or who disagreed with me, or needed to make it happen the way that I envisioned it and saw it happen. And other times when I cultivate the I don't know mind, things still come together beautifully, and it's much less of a struggle. I was communicating back and forth with Breen earlier in the week because we were getting ready for our pumpkin party in the park. And it took a while to identify which park it was going to be. And then I got another text message thing from Jane saying, who's organizing this? And I cultivated the I don't know mind. I don't know. I'm not sure that this is going to be an organized event. People say, what do I think about organized religion? I say, well, I don't have one. Because that's one of the things that we have in New Thought, is that we can be spontaneous. And it was perfect. We basically put the word out of, bring something, some pumpkin spice, something to eat, something to drink, something to play, and a chair. And it was perfect. It all fit together perfectly. And raise your hand either in the screen or just in your mind if you know that you're the sort of person that if you had been tasked with it, you could have over-organized that and turned it into spreadsheets and checklists and And a telephone tree, you don't have to raise your hand any. But yeah, because we all could. We all could do that. And we don't have to. We don't have to. So when you're in the comfort zone, be aware that you're in the comfort zone. And be aware that there is growth and new possibility outside the comfort zone. And that there is gratitude and unfolding and peace inside the comfort zone. And make your choice and take your steps. And be in that place of inviting the newness and let the love unfold, because the people around you deserve it, and you deserve it, and we all deserve it. So it is.